Welcome, and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. As we're into the new year, many people are probably trying to figure out how come some of their New Year's resolutions just aren't working out right. For instance, you're still having trouble losing that weight. You don't have the energy that you want. You're feeling sluggish. You're not up to par. Maybe the doctor, when you go to see him, can't figure out why you're not feeling well. Well, the problem could be your thyroid, but the usual battery of standard tests may not detect the problem of thyroid. And we're joined today with the nation's leading expert, Dr. Kajiki. Gil Kajiki is joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program to talk about how we can solve the thyroid mystery. He has more than 30 years of experience and offers patients answers and protocols to improve thyroid function and overall health. I'd like to welcome to our program, Dr. Gil Kajiki.
Thank you so much.
Now, tell us how you got started in all this. I understand that it all started about a dozen years ago.
Yeah, about 12, 15 years ago. I've been a chiropractor for 30 years, and for the first about 15 years, I just did mainly musculoskeletal work, headaches, back pain, neck pain, structural correction. And what happened was my wife started, she's like a corporate executive, and she was traveling around the world to the company's different locations. And she had come back from a business trip and contracted Epstein-Barr. And so she kind of got the typical symptoms from Epstein-Barr of fatigue and sluggishness and morning fatigue and brain fog and no motivation. And so she went and would get periodic B12 shots to try to help that, but it really didn't help too much. But in 2 years, this Epstein-Barr had morphed into 50 pounds of weight gain, fatigue, more fatigue, hair loss, depression, insomnia, racing heart, night sweats, digestive problems, dry skin, memory loss, and just a whole plethora of symptoms. And we'd been to several doctors in those 2 years period of time, and all the doctors said, hey, your lab tests are normal. I don't know what to tell you. You know, you're raising 2 teenage daughters, you're a high executive corporate officer, you got a lot of stress going on. It's probably just stress and raising these teenage daughters. And I was a chiropractor. I didn't know anything, and so I okay. I mean, what am I going to say, right? I can't debate the doctor. But something inside me told me something wasn't right about that, because this is not the person who I knew. I knew someone else. So I had started studying functional medicine right around the end of that second year, and I had done a blood test on her right before she had gone into the hospital because she had come down with pneumonia. And I got this blood test, and I was so excited. I went to the hospital, and I said, I figured out what's wrong with you. I figured it out. You've got Hashimoto's hypothyroid, which is an immune system problem that's attacking your thyroid, which completely explained all her symptoms. Her doctor had been in the room at the time, and he looked at the test, and he said, I agree with you. You're right. She does have Hashimoto's. I said, great. What do we do? What do we do about it? And he said, well, we're going to put you on thyroid medication. And I said, but why would you do that? This is an immune system problem that's attacking the thyroid. He says, well, that's the way we treat it in traditional medicine. I said, but that doesn't make sense. Why are you treating the victim and not the bully here? Because that's the way they do it in traditional medicine. And I said, that just doesn't make sense to me. So we fired the doctor. She was well enough to leave the hospital. And I dove into functional medicine, and I did as much research as I possibly could. I contacted colleagues of mine who had done this before and were smarter than me and better than me at this, and together, within 18 months, we completely reversed her Hashimoto's. She has no symptoms at all. She lost all 50 pounds. Her hair grew back. Her depression went away. Her insomnia went away. The night sweats went away. Everything went away. She's never been on thyroid medication, and that was a sign to us that we need to change our practice. And we changed our practice from musculoskeletal to just working with autoimmune thyroid conditions and treating women just like her. Because I will tell you and your listeners, there's no way your lab test can be normal and you still feel lousy. There's just no way.
I know, isn't that interesting when, well, we can't find anything wrong with you, so it must be just you.
Yeah, the doctors, they blame the patient. No, it's not you. The reason is because they're doing the wrong tests, they're not doing the right media, and they're reading them wrong. That's the problem. it's not the patient. Your lab test cannot be normal, and you still feel lousy. So somebody's got to dig deeper.
Now, how common is it that people might have a thyroid that's just not functioning properly?
Well, I'm gonna say it's very, very common. However, the doctors really won't investigate the thyroid first, right? They love to just prescribe medication based on symptoms and not get to the root cause of the problem. So many times they don't even get to the thyroid until last, and then on top of that, they typically will only do 2 thyroid tests out of a possible 11 of them. So these 2 tests may come out normal, but if you don't do the other 9, then you're going to miss a thyroid problem that exists there because you did the wrong test.
Now, tell us what specifically the thyroid does.
It specifically controls all the metabolism in your body. So when your thyroid goes bad, your metabolism goes bad, which is very common for people to gain weight. So they do their exercise, they eat well, as good as they think they could, and despite all their best efforts, they're still gaining weight. So yes, it could be your thyroid. However, if you don't get all the tests done, you won't know it's your thyroid. Now, your thyroid gland is the only gland in your whole body that controls every single cell in your body. So every single cell in your body has a little thyroid receptor, which is like a little thyroid garage for the thyroid hormone. So when your thyroid gland lets out this hormone, it goes to your heart, your liver, your lungs, your hair, your nails, your skin, goes to your whole body. And so this little thyroid receptor garage goes to all different parts of your body. But if your thyroid doesn't work right, then the hormone may not get to the garage properly, and then you have dysfunction in other parts of your body as well as your thyroid.
Wow, I didn't realize it was so complex when it comes to just one individual thing doing all of this. Now, I'm kind of curious, how often are people prescribed medications as a result of a thyroid A? It sounds like they're not being properly tested, but also, you were talking about how they're pretty much given medications because of symptoms. So how often are people medicated as a result of a poor functioning thyroid?
Well, they're medicated all the time. If the person is going to traditional medicine for their primary form of treatment, they're medicated all the time. Because in traditional medicine, your only choices for treatment are medication, radiation, and surgery. So if you're given if you're given those 3 choices, which one are you going to choose? You're going to choose medication. The problem is they issue their medication based on symptoms, not on lab test results. So they never really get to the root cause of the problem. So some people get these hormones when it could really be a thyroid problem. Or they get this thyroid medication when it could really be a hormone problem because they mimic each other.
Wow, that's interesting. Now, you use an all-natural protocol. Tell us about that a little bit more in detail.
Well, all-natural means that it's non-prescription. And I don't have a problem with prescription medication. I really don't. I only have a problem when it doesn't work. And that's when patients seek me out. They seek me out when their medications don't work. So what I do then is I start creating very personalized, customized protocols for each and every person. I don't base my protocols on symptoms. I base it on lab test results. So I can get 10 people in with all the same symptoms, exactly the same symptoms, but there may be 7 different protocols. And so I will create customized eating plans, tell them what they can and what they cannot eat, what their carbohydrate versus protein ratio might be. I recommend herbal compounds, herbal supplements that are designed to start removing different body dysfunctions based on what their lab test results say. I will issue out vitamins, minerals, enzymes, amino acids for deficiencies that they have based on lab test results. And then I may do a detox to help flush their liver out, or maybe they've got hormone overload, or they've got a sluggish liver. I'll do these natural detox protocols to get this individual fully functioning with all their body systems. And these are all natural, non-prescription.
Now, it's interesting because you said that you may have 5 people who have all the same symptoms, However, you treat each of them differently, and that's interesting because, as you were talking about earlier in the program, a lot of times they'll say, well, the tests show that there's nothing wrong with you, so it's probably just your thinking.
Right.
Well, that same thing also happens in treatment. Well, this is the treatment we use standardly.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, well, it's not working because maybe it's all in your head, see, because it should work for you because it works for everybody else, alleged. And that idea of the one-size-fits-all treatment doesn't sound like it flies too well, especially when it comes to hyperthyroidism.
Right, right. One of the things that drives me crazy is I get comments or questions from patients all the time that said, I read Dr. A's book, and he said to take supplement Z. And I read Dr. A's book, or I saw Dr. A's program on the Internet, and they said to do this diet. And I have to say, Dr. A isn't talking to you, Mrs. Jones. They're talking to the world. Right? Do you want to be treated as an individual, or do you want to be treated as a whole, like the rest of the population? So we have to create specific, customized protocols for you. So we can't do something general. Now, here's where it gets really confusing for patients. Is there a body dysfunction called triggers? Triggers are body dysfunctions that very closely mimic a thyroid problem, but isn't a thyroid problem. So what I mean by that is this. As a patient, all you know is, I have fatigue, I have weight gain, I have digestive problems, I have memory loss, I have hair loss, I have moodiness, anxiety, insomnia. That's all you know. Well, that could be thyroid. No question. That could just be thyroid alone, but you won't know unless you do all the tests. So you got to do at least 10 tests, not just 2. So you have to rule out the thyroid by doing all the tests. But that could also be something called the triggers. And the 9 most common triggers are anemia, blood sugar instability, adrenal gland dysfunction, hormone imbalance, inflammation, gastrointestinal problems, food sensitivities, chemical sensitivities, and hidden infections. So if you look at that list of triggers that I just mentioned, that very closely mimics that thyroid problem, but it's not a thyroid problem. It could be the triggers. But I can tell you, I've never in my history ever come across a person that doesn't have the triggers and a thyroid problem.
So they pretty much go hand in hand, it sounds like.
Pretty much go hand in hand. Why? Because the thyroid has functions over all the rest of the body.
Wow. Well, tell us about some of the signs where a person might think or should explore the possibility that they're having a thyroid misfunction, so to speak.
Well, I mean, I guess as a patient, you really don't know if you have a thyroid problem or not. All you know is you have these symptoms. And so what I would do is I would go to the doctor and say, look, I've tried to change my diet, I've tried to exercise, I've done all the things that I think I should do. I want to get my thyroid tested. But I don't want 3 or 2 tests. Okay? Don't give me TSH, free T4, and T3 only. Don't give me that. I want all the thyroid tests. And there are at least 11 of them. So you say, I want all 11 thyroid tests. Don't say I want a full panel, because in a full panel, that doctor full panel might be 3 tests, and a partial panel might be 1. So you say, I want all 11 tests. And if they say you don't need all 11 tests, you only need 3, then you find another doctor.
It's pretty interesting that you say that, because a lot of times patients will just simply do what the doctor tells them to do, and they don't realize here's someone who's supposed to be in service to help you become well.
Right.
And, that you would say something like, look, if you're not going to give me all the tests, then I'm going to go find somebody who will.
Right.
Now, the interesting thing, because the thyroid is the master part of the endocrine system, it sounds like, how often do people actually go to an endocrinologist? And is that the right way to go when it comes to something like this?
In my opinion, no. Because, well, let me rephrase that and qualify that. Okay. If you go to the endocrinologist, and their choices, once again, are medication, radiation, and surgery, and you choose one of those routes and it works for you, wonderful. I'm happy for you. Great. But I can tell you that I don't get contacted until that stuff doesn't work. Okay? So when it doesn't work, then I have a problem with it. So you may go to this endocrinologist, all right, and they may still only test you for 3 of those 10 tests, 3 of those 11 tests, and it's not going to work. Well, here's the problem with the endocrinologist, is they're so hyper-focused because they're specialists that they're only looking at the thyroid. They're not going to guide you on diet. They're not going to guide you on different types of foods to stay away from. They're not going to guide you on adrenal gland dysfunction. They're not going to guide you on blood sugar instability. They're not going to guide you on inflammation. They're not going to try to find hidden infections. They're not going to try to find some anemia. They're going to give you thyroid medication, and that is it. So in that case, that's the wrong pathway because they're so narrow-focused, they're missing all the other triggers.
Wow, I didn't realize it was so complex when it comes to something like this. Tell us, is there a specific age group that this affects more than others?
Well, no specific age group, but I would say, from 25 to 55 is the most common age group. But because now of the very poor diet the American public has, because of the lack of exercise the American public has, because of the stress levels that we undergo, because of the toxins in the environment, the foods, the GMOs, the antibiotics, the hormones, I'm finding younger and younger people are coming into my office. I mean, I'm starting to get 15-year-old girls, 12-year-old girls.
That's got to be very unusual.
Yeah, it is really unusual. Mm-hmm. Because even as a parent, you think, how could my child's thyroid be a problem? They're 12 years old. How could they? So you don't even think that it could be a thyroid problem.
And when you're seeing these teenage girls, what particular kinds of symptoms are you seeing them come in with? Are they varied, or are there specific things that seem pretty common?
Well, because kids have such a different lifestyle than adults, it reflects on them differently. Like it may reflect on them with very poor motivation. They always used to clean up after themselves, and they don't. They were very diligent about doing their homework, and now they're not. They were very social, and now they're not very social. They, want to stay home by themselves more often than they used to. They're constantly wanting to take naps when they weren't before. So it reflects a little bit differently on the kid's lifestyle than adult's lifestyle. So you have to be a really good detective to really notice that there's some changes going on.
Now, it's interesting. I'm on your website, and I'm looking through your blog here, and one of the things that I've seen here is one of your blog posts was feeling sluggish, as you're talking about right now. That's something I'm hearing in a lot of teenagers.
Yeah.
I'm feeling tired, and I'm thinking to myself, but you people don't work like kids your age used to work.
Right.
You don't get up early in the morning like we used to get up, And,
walking in the snow, both ways uphill. No, you're right, and that's a reflection on their lack of exercise and their very poor diet and eating all this fast food with preservatives and gluten and antibiotics and hormones. The food that teenagers have right now is not the same kind of food that you and I had as teenagers. It's very different. You and I had a very different kind of lifestyle as a teenager than these kids do right now, and it's not better for them now. It's worse for their health right now. And so, they're feeling symptoms that you and I never had at their age.
Now, I'm curious, how successful have you been in working with people about thyroid conditions?
Well, I can tell you this. I am very careful about who I accept as a patient. I don't accept everyone. Everyone goes through an initial, a first 15-minute phone consultation with me to qualify their case, and then they go through an initial consultation with me. And as a result of that careful qualification, my success rate is like high 90s. So out of 100 people who come in the office, 98, 95% of those people will all be exceeded beyond their expectations.
Well, that's pretty incredible, actually, and this is pretty much a permanent turnaround for the most part, because actually, from what I'm hearing from you, is they learn also to adapt a whole different lifestyle than they're used to.
Right. Yeah, well, I'm going to say yes, they learn to do a whole different lifestyle. However, all right? It is a question of them really monitoring their health closely like they should, and changing their lifestyle. Now, one of the reasons why diets are so ineffective long-term is because people learn to do something short-term, but they don't do it long-term. It's no different than my patients. If my patients don't continue the habits that got them better, then they will inevitably slip back into these problems again. I encourage them, though, look, when you've reached your maximum improvement with me, don't just go away and never check in with me again. Check in with me, once or twice a year to do some lab testing. I talked about how important lab testing was because that's the only way to find the root cause of the problem. Don't wait till you feel a symptom. Get a lab test done. So come to me and test your adrenals. Come to me and test your hormones and your blood work, your inflammatory markers, check for your anemia. Don't wait till your symptom comes up. Okay? Symptoms show up last. Lab tests go bad first.
Now, here's something that I think is important for our listeners to know, too, and we've done many segments on this, and that is digestive health.
Yeah.
Now, as we were talking about earlier with the teenage girls, about that idea of, geez, they're feeling sluggish and tired, just no motivation, you're also seeing a surgence, of course, of children who are being considered to be on the autistic spectrum. And there's a gut-brain connection, apparently, with that.
Absolutely.
Not completely 100%, but there is a connection between that. So for those out there who might be feeling that brain fog or they're having digestive disorders, things like that, how often is that really tied to improper thyroid function? I mean, this is something, as you said, masters the whole body. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Just as much as there is with the ADD and ADHD is that there's a gut-brain connection. Well, there's a gut-thyroid connection. Okay, two of your hormones that are made by your thyroid is called T4 and T3. Okay. T4 is your inactive thyroid hormone. T3 is your active thyroid hormone. But the body makes 93% T4 and only 7% T3. So now you're thinking, oh my gosh, 93% of my thyroid hormone is inactive, only 7% is active. How the heck do I convert my T4 into T3? Well, that conversion mostly occurs in the liver and in the gut. So if you've got some gut dysfunction, which means you've got symptoms of GERD, acid reflux, burping, belching, flatulence, bloating after meals, you don't have a bowel movement every day, you go every other day, or you have loose stools, or you have constipation, you've got a gut problem. And if you have a gut problem, you're not going to be able to properly convert that inactive T4 into that active T3. So what's going to happen is you're going to feel like you have thyroid symptoms, but it's not even a thyroid problem. It's a gut problem.
So do they go hand in hand at times then?
Always.
Okay.
Always. There isn't a thyroid patient that I have that I don't work on their gut. Every single thyroid person, I work on their gut. Not just because it affects the thyroid, but because it has widespread tangent benefits. It positively affects their brain. It positively affects their detox system. I mean, there's so many benefits by working on their gut that's just a necessary part of what I do. The question is, how do you work on the gut? Well, you don't know unless you do the testing, because somebody may need more hydrochloric acid. Somebody may need more digestive enzymes. Somebody may need a leaky gut repair. Somebody may need pancreatic enzymes. Somebody may need probiotics. Somebody may need prebiotics. So you can't just work on your gut without having the proper testing.
I think you really hit it on the head. A lot of times people, as you were saying earlier, might just have one or two tests. Well, this is what we believe it is, and then you go that direction, and as you said, well, now I'm not feeling any better. Well, the doctor says, well, maybe it's all in your head kind of a thing. And it's really interesting how this all works. How would you suggest that a person approaches their doctor so they sincerely get, into the direction that they want to move?
I tell you, I really feel bad for patients right now because here's where you're going to have to decide. First of all, there are two models of healthcare out there. Okay, one is the traditional model, where your endocrinologists, your GPs, your gynecologists, your gastroenterologists, all your specialists, where they exist. That's in the traditional medical model. Okay, you get to use your insurance, and maybe you don't pay as much, but your choices for treatment are medication, radiation, and surgery. That is it. You don't have any other choices other than medication, radiation, and surgery. And if you go to the specialist, they're not going to guide you on thyroid and diet. If you go to the gastroenterologist, they're not going to guide you on thyroid and gut. So you have to decide if that model is good enough for you or not. And at that point, you're going to see if this medication, radiation, surgery is for you. If it doesn't work, then you have to jump to the other model where people like me exist. Dietitians, chiropractors, functional medicine doctors, acupuncturists, where we're not governed by insurance companies and we're not governed by pharmaceutical companies. We give the patients all the tests that they need. We give the patients all the supplements that they need to fix the root cause of the problem. But that typically isn't covered by insurance. It's ironic how insurance company has no problem covering a $100,000 heart surgery, but they won't cover a $6 nutritional supplement.
Well, I was going to ask you how often, if at all possible, do insurance companies have the willingness to work with you and your protocol?
Rarely. Because why? Because we're not promoting the pharmaceuticals, and we're not promoting the surgical industry, and we're not promoting the radiation industry. So we do not make them money. So why would they support us? They don't.
Now, what is it like? People in a lot of cases are pretty committed to their doctors. Have doctors been willing to work with you to work with their patients? I'm
going to say no. I've come to a really surprising realization by working in this field. Because I always want to give every doctor the benefit of the doubt. And I really believe that there are very few malicious doctors out there. But I can tell you this. I've got over 100 different video testimonials. These are just people who are willing to put themselves on video on my website that say, I've got a lot of help from you. This worked great. I can tell you, of those people, at least 80 to 90 of them have doctors who have helped them with medication or whatever situation. Okay? And they went to those doctors first. They're trusted doctors. They went there first, and it didn't work, so they went looking for somebody else, and they found me. Every one of those patients got help from my protocol. Every single one. Okay? Now, they would go back to their doctor and say, I saw this doctor that I worked with online or over the phone, and I got so much better. I feel incredible. So these doctors couldn't get these patients better, and now they're telling them how incredible they feel. Guess how many doctors I got a call from to say, hey, I heard you did great work with Mary Jones. Let me send you my difficult patients. Guess how many doctors?
Sounds like quite a few.
Zero.
Just kind of send them on their way whether they feel good or not, huh?
Yeah. So Think about this. Does your doctor really care about their patients? If that were the case, why wouldn't they send their difficult group of people to the doctor that got their difficult patient better? Why wouldn't they refer them over if they really care about their patient base? Because their egos are such that they can't stand the fact that somebody else got them better and they couldn't.
Wow. Sounds like you're a real maverick out there.
Yeah, I kind of am, because I'm against the norm, right? I'm against the typical traditional medical doctor. No, I'm not against them. Let me rephrase that. I'm not against them. I just do something different.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and when you get a success that someone else can't get, now your ego is bruised. And unfortunately, it's getting in the way of many of these patients who could be getting better when your doctor is really supposed to have your best interest at heart. I should have gotten calls from all 80 of these patients' doctors saying, What are you doing? Maybe you could help me with my difficult patient base. Maybe I could send you these people and you could help them.
It's such fascinating to know a lot about this kind of a thing and what's going on out there, and you realize a lot of times, too, that doctors get shackled with regulations about how they can practice medicine, and that, you step outside of that particular paradigm, and you're having such fantastic results. And for our listeners out there, if you could you give out a website where they can find out more information about who you are and how perhaps people who are listening here might consider working with you or within these particular kind of protocols?
Yeah, the best way to get a hold of me is go to my website. It's called valleythyroidinstitute.com. Okay? valleythyroidinstitute.com. Really simple. And it's got a whole bunch of information. Don't read through all the information. That's just going to overwhelm you. But go to 3 areas on the website. One of them is download the free thyroid report. And right when you open up the website, you'll see a box there to put in your name and your email address. And it's an instant access to an 11-page thyroid report where we talk to you about the triggers, the autoimmune component, and the different testing that I do. I'm big on testing. I don't know how many times I brought that up, but you got to do the test. You got to do the test.
Absolutely.
Right, so that downloaded report tells you about all the testing and the thyroid and the triggers and the thyroid protocols that we do. Second area is go to the free 15-minute phone consultation. So whether you're international, we do Skype, or you're domestic USA, we do phone, you'll get 15 minutes at no charge and no obligation of my time to get a feel for my style, my philosophy, and just to see if it's a good fit between you and I. It gives me a chance to hear about your case and let you know if it's a good chance for success or it's not. If it's not, I'll tell you. I won't waste your time. As I mentioned, I'm very careful about who I accept. I don't accept everybody. Why would I accept you if I feel like you didn't have a good chance for success? That's just going to be a horrible review for me. Right? So I'll be honest with you, and I'll let you know, look, you don't have a good chance of success with my protocols, you should go here or you should go there, X place, I'll tell you. And then lastly, go to the patient testimonials. There's over 100 people on video that went through my protocols that will tell you about their success. And you'll see some people, they got 90% better in 2 weeks. Some people got 80% better in 3 months. Some people got 50% better in a month. So your success will vary. But you'll see the way I've categorized it is I've categorized it by symptom. And so these people will tell you about their symptoms that you had, and you'll see it's the exact same symptoms as you. So you won't be the first time we've treated your case. I know you probably feel like you have a difficult case because your other doctor, the great one who couldn't fix it, but these are all the same kind of people. Their doctors couldn't get them fixed, and so they searched the internet. They found me. They came across what we did. We worked together, and things worked out great.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Dr. Gil Kajiki, for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program. For our listeners, again, go ahead and give out that website.
It's valleythyroidinstitute.com.
Very good. And you certainly sound like the kind of doctor I like to have in my corner. No nonsense, maverick. We don't care. We just care about results. I like that. Thank you so much for joining us here on the program today.
All right. Thanks for having me on the show.
You bet. We want to thank you, the listeners out there, for joining us. You can also discover more. Visit us on Twitter at Beyond 50 Radio as well as Facebook. And also go to our website at beyond50radio.com. That is the number 50. We encourage you to sign up for our weekly e-newsletter. I think you'll find a lot of great information there as well. We want to thank you for joining us here on the program today. This is the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis, and remember, live your day past halfway.